Hi, I'm Yakov Horowitz, and this is the first in a series of videos titled Helping Your Child Learn and Master Gemara. And we're going to talk about how to introduce your children to Gemara, what skills they will need in order to master Gemara, and most importantly, how you can help them acclimate themselves to a complicated text that they're learning in a foreign language with no punctuation. I'm also going to discuss this workbook that we just released, a beginner workbook that will help children understand Gemara much better than they would if they did not have this introduction. Let me start by telling you a story that had a profound impact on my teaching career. 34 years ago, I started teaching the weakest track in Yeshiva Taras Emes, 8th graders. So I taught kids who had been learning Gemara for 2 or 3 years. Many or most of them were extremely frustrated by their lack of understanding of Gemara. Some of them, despite being heavily tutored, they knew they were bright in many other areas in life, but just couldn't get Gemara. And something happened that really changed the way I thought about my teaching. And what happened was, I was driving 4 carpet salesmen, 2 of whom were good friends of mine, to Newark Airport. And as soon as they got in the car, they started talking shop. So they were having discussions about carpet. They were making jokes that were carpet related. And the entire trip, I had absolutely no idea what they were talking about. And it really sounded like this. Joey bought a 24 long E. And the other 3 would crack up. I had no idea what was going on. And when we pulled into Newark Airport, I told them that you guys taught me such a powerful lesson. I will never, ever teach a piece of Gemara again to my students without explaining every single word, so that they should never feel like I felt listening to you guys talk shop about something I had no idea about. So this workbook actually takes kids through this discussion or introduction. The first lesson talks about the origin of Gemara, why there's a Torah Shebiksav, a written Torah, and Torah Shebal Peh, the oral Torah, which coincidentally we actually have written. And we talks about who the people are, why it's important to learn Gemara, its history. And I'm going to highlight 2 lessons just to give you a flavor for what the workbook is about. Lesson number 5 actually walks the children through a sample page of Gemara. And it's sort of a roadmap to help them see how the page is laid out, where the Gemara is, where Rashi is, where Tosfos is, how we have a discussion about finding the page number. In Gemara, you don't say page 56, you say Daf Chaf Beis Amud Beis, or page 22, second side. So again, even not knowing that sometimes could be a great hindrance to kids if they don't know what's going on. And it's so important not to make assumptions. And my very first piece of advice, practical piece of advice to you as parents, would be to think of anything possible that your children might need to understand a new topic of Gemara, and take the time to teach it to them, to explain it to them, so that they'll be able to slide right into it. I'm going to give you an example of what not knowing the backstory looks like. These are actually 2 psukim, 2 verses from the beginning of Parshas Vayeshev, with the 3rd verse on the following page. Now, imagine if we were learning just text. It reads as follows. Yakov lived in the land that his father lived in the land of Canaan. These are the children of Yakov. Yosef was 17 years old. He was a shepherd together with his brothers, and he played with the children of Bilhah and Zilpah. And Yosef brought the bad news, the things that they weren't proud of, to their father. Now, it's Pasuk Gimel, and one word here that's so powerful. It says here, Yisrael loved Yosef more than the other sons because he was his youngest, and he made a beautiful colored garment for him. Now, this is an introduction to an entire parsha that talks about the sale of Yosef. Now, and the brothers envy. Now, if you don't know that Yakov had 4 wives, and the history of Rachel and Leah, and who Bilhah and Zilpah were, and especially one point here is that in this third pasuk on top of this page, it said that Yisrael loved Yosef more than the other boys. Now, if the child doesn't know that Yisrael is another name for Yaakov, it's going to be a very, very long parasha, because the story makes absolutely no sense. Why would I care what Yisrael is doing or who he likes? So that's the basic message. Give the kids an introduction, help them walk through it, and also give them as much backstory as possible. One final piece of advice, and I'm going to read from lesson 6 of Rabbi Spivak, and he actually walks the kids through that paragraph on top that you see. I'll read it to you. David asks his brother Chaim, do you know what mommy's making for supper? Chaim answers, we're having hamburgers. I know this because I saw mom take some ground beef out of the freezer. Well, David said, that doesn't mean anything. Maybe we're having meatballs. Chaim responds, it's true, but I saw her go to the store and buy hamburger buns. Now, Rabbi Spivak, the superstar Rebbe who created this workbook, had just a brilliant way of explaining and breaking down the steps of Gemara, Shakla V'Tarya, the give and take of Gemara, in a way that's relevant to children and in a way that could help them break it down. The first question here is called a she'elas birur. It's not a kasha, which is more like finding a contradiction or refuting a proof, but rather it's a question for information. What's mom making for supper? Chaim answers, that's a tshuva, we're having hamburgers. He brings a proof. The proof to that is, the raya is that I saw mom taking ground beef out of the freezer. David comes back with a kasha because he's breaking or disturbing or disrupting the proof that Chaim brought. And he's saying that's not a proof that we're having hamburgers, maybe we're having meatballs. Chaim answers with the final teretz that I saw them bring hamburger buns. And it's information like this that is so helpful to children as they get into the very complicated back and forth discussions that take place in Gemara. The workbook is set up really lahavdil like a textbook with all sorts of questions, different types of higher order thinking skills. There are some multiple choice, there are some matching questions, and it's all designed so that the children can slowly, carefully get everything they need in order to master Gemara. You can find all information about our Gemara and Chumash workbooks at bbchumash.com, bbchumash.com. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you found it helpful.